Hello and welcome to the NonProphets. This internet audio program is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You are listening to live, I think. It's the 6th of April, 2002 on atheistnetwork.com. Broadcasting from the second floor of the Glasser Studios in Austin, Texas. I'm Vic Farrow. I'll be hosting the show today as Jeff is away on business. I'm joined by Mary McManamee.
Hi.
Okay. And our producer, Russell Glasser.
Hi, guys.
And our very first studio audience.
Yay! All right. And finally, we have a room big enough to support a studio audience.
Yes, the new studio is real cool.
Thank you guys so much, everyone who helped us move.
Yes.
You're welcome. Okay, on with the regular announcements.
Oh, wait,
coming up
straight out of Seattle, we got Wendy, our special guest from Seattle.
If you get announcements on the web from telling you that the show's coming up, that comes from Wendy. Thank you, Wendy.
Anytime.
Coming up on today's show, Wax on the Web. And see any street corner flower sellers lately? We have info on them. Does the name Thomas Francis Wilson Jr. ring a bell to anybody? This is the actor who played Biff on Back to the Future.
No.
I have some goodies on him as well. The ACA has weekly meetings Sunday morning at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop at 307 West 5th Street at 10:30 a.m., except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. at the Longhorn Room of First Cafeteria at Cross Mall. Next lecture series will be April the 7th, and the guest will be
Dave Garlock. He is a UT journalism professor, and he will be talking about Pulitzer Prize-winning feature stories, among other topics. It'll basically be an open dialogue, so bring your questions, bring whatever knowledge you want to know about the media.
Oh,
He'll
boy.
probably be able to answer it.
Oh, boy. Okay, ACA board meetings take place at 10 a.m. right after our regular meeting on the second Sunday of every month. These board meetings are open to all ACA members, but you can only vote if you're a member of the board of directors. The next board meeting is April 14th. Randall's Cards, for those of you who shop at Randall's, and if you're listening on us and you're not living in Austin, you're probably not shopping at Randall's, so never mind. But the Randall's you can give them a nonprofit organizational number, which is 5158, and have 1% of your purchases donated to the Atheist Community of Austin.
Always
just give us money.
Yeah, right.
We'll take it. We don't care. The Godless Gamers meet every Monday at 7 at the Jeff and Amanda's place, and you can go to the web for more information about that. ACA Happy Hour takes place at Antonio's near Highway 35 and 183 every Thursday night at 7 p.m. It got changed from Wednesday because of the time that they started to close the shop down.
Right.
If you get there and don't see anyone, hang around. Lots of people trickle in as the night goes on. For more information, call our voicemail at area code 512-371-2911 or visit our website at www.atheist-community.org. Log on to our chat room. If it is possible today, go to the Atheist Network site and hopefully you can get in. We were having trouble earlier. I'm not sure if it's not.
Well, Charles and Steve Grant are both in the...
Okay, hi Charles, hi Steve. Opening music was from Disturbed. The song was called Conflict. I thought that was kind of clever given all the nonsense going on over in the Middle East and a good chunk of the world today. Anyway, hello. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. And how's our audience doing?
Great.
Great.
Fire.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Can we have a laugh track?
Right.
Okay, I didn't want choking to death track.
All right, anybody want to jump in on anything? You want to tell us about...
Yeah, speaking of laugh tracks,
Hang on.
do we not want to get into that yet?
I don't know. Should we do this before the news? That's okay
I
with
think
me.
so.
I just wanted to let you guys know. Okay, this is a new segment that I'm planning to do, although I can't promise that I'll know how to find enough material to do it regularly. But I'm always kind of surfing the web throughout the week. And so I got a new segment called Wackiness on the Web, which is just weird facts that I ran into while surfing around. And here's one. Thomas F. Wilson is the guy who played played Biff Tannen in Back to the Future. Which
Why don't you make like a tree? Get out of here.
Yeah, that's the one. Very good.
Thank you.
His site is www.tomwilsonusa.com, and I just had to stumble across this. It turns out he used to have a stand-up career. That's pretty much the only movie series he's ever been in. And guess what he's doing these days?
What?
I don't know. Tell us.
He is singing Christian folk music.
Ah!
He's got his own seeds.
We need to have Jeff here so he can do a rewrite of the lyrics like he did
yeah,
with the
we just played a little sample of it at the beginning. And, can you support me on this? That is pretty darn bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Although his voice is pretty good. But it's just
he
the
doesn't sound
material.
as scary. But I have to tell you that when I came across this on the web, it couldn't help thinking of that famous scene. You know, George comes up to the car. He's like, "Hey, you, get your damn hands off her." And Biff goes, well, why don't you get out of here, McFly? And he said, "No, if you leave her alone." And Biff says, "All right, McFly, you're asking for it. You're going to get it." And then he pulls out his guitar and goes, "This is a little number that I call Where's an Angel?" Punches him out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, man.
Let's see. So, for more wackiness on the web, I actually got this story sort of inspired by Ginny's mother, who,
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Maybe you guys have noticed that a lot of time in Austin, when you pull up to a street corner and stop at a traffic light, you have these people walking up to you pushing flowers on you, trying to sell you flowers.
I ignore them.
Hey, yesterday I had a guy.
In other cities get this.
Yeah, I had a guy do it yesterday.
You're
And
pretty aggressive about it, too.
I wanted to roll down the window and ask him if he was with this group, but I didn't know what the name of the group was.
Yeah,
So now you're
I wondered about, if these people actually make money this way, very effectively. And Ginny's mother said, "I heard they were in a cult or something." So I went looking it up, and sure enough, it's the Moonies.
The Moonies.
They got kicked out of the airports, I guess.
The Unification Church of the Reverend Sun Myung Moon has this nationwide organization that basically puts flowers on people. They get the flowers for practically nothing, and then they don't pay the people who sell the flowers. These are people who live in communes. I mean, they don't need extra money for food and shelter, so so basically it's pure profit. And according to one site, they get $750 million per year.
What?
Selling
Selling flowers?
And they do all kinds of interesting, sneaky cult tactics. I don't know if you'd call them cult tactics, but they're kind of underhanded sales tactics. Like, you've got a guy in a car with a girl, and the guy just walks up and hands the flowers to the girl, and then says to the guy, "That'll be $10 for him."
Man. Are the Moonies any relation to the Aum Shinrikyo cult in Japan that was accused of...
The Moonies are
Korean.
The Moonies are Korean.
Okay.
And, boy, if you start searching for them on the web, you find all sorts of weird stuff. Like, they're heavily funding the Republican Party, and they were a major player in the Clinton trial. Lots of weird conspircy theory stuff.
Wait, now how were they a major player in the Clinton trial? They were giving money or something?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay. Wow.
The Washington Times is what they own, which is this major conservative rag that then is run out of Washington somewhere. They're the money behind that. So that's all for wackiness on the web. But if you want to find this story for yourself, It's a story in the Chicago Tribune from October 1987, and the headline is, "Street Corner Pedal Pushers Dip into a Well of Guilt for Their Funds."
Yeah, Hyper Puppy in the chat room says that Moon seems to think that we will have a one world religion, and guess who the leader will be?
I don't know who.
Well, the head of the Moonies.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I believe Reverend Moon is known to marry thousands of people at a time.
I'll come up to the
that's right.
microphone if you're
Yeah,
not.
tell us about
Nick's not
this.
here, so.
Is this now? Do these mass marriages occur in Korea?
I think they've occurred in the U.S. as well, but
Really?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I really don't know much about it.
What were you saying, Laura?
I think he's the one that used to do mass marriages in stadiums.
Okay. Laura says that she thinks that he used to do mass marriages in stadiums. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Yeah. I heard about some kind of mass marriage ceremony
So
going
you
on in
actually
China.
talked to one of these people
But-
the other day, or you thought?
No,
about
I
it,
didn't
but
talk to him, but I wanted to roll down the window and ask him, but I didn't know the name of the group. I didn't know what they were called or calling
Now,
themselves.
with the web, they could marry hundreds of thousands of people at a time, maybe millions.
Okay. Yeah, well, of course. Yeah. Well, okay, so that was it for the wackiness, though.
Yep.
All right, well, let's go ahead and segue, I guess, into
Mercifully
some...
short segment.
All right. Well, I've got some more wackiness going on. Maybe not quite that wacky, but it's a good segue. Have y'all heard about the latest antics by the Southern Baptist Convention? They are wanting to urge members of the Southern Baptist Convention to boycott Howard Johnson during the Howard Johnson hotel chain, that is. I don't know that we have those in Austin anymore. We used to, but I think they've since
They're
closed.
kind of a pop culture icon, but I haven't seen any around.
Yeah. I'm
They're the
not
ones
sure.
with the orange roofs, right?
They used to be kind of, they used to be bright blue, and they had orange trim. Yeah, known as Hojo for short.
So I hear they once appeared in Modern Architecture magazine under the heading, "Don't."
Don't do this. Well, yeah, coincidentally, this article comes out of the Las Vegas Sun, so, all things Las Vegas, maybe this is, kind of a related thing, but Baptist group was referring to the 3-day Beat Me in St. Louis seminar being held at Howard Johnson Hotel by the St. Louis Leather and Lace. This will be going on, will be going on April 26th through the 28th. Leather and Lace's website says it endorses free expression of alternative lifestyles and forms of loving, including bondage, domination, and sadomasochism, regardless of sexual orientation. And the Baptist Convention, on the other hand, the nation's largest Protestant group with 101,000 clergy, canceled its June reservations in a letter to hotel officials on April 4th. It was unclear how many rooms were pre-booked, but convention goers were expected to reserve 4,000 hotel rooms citywide during the two meeting. Messages apparent. This article is from the Las Vegas Sun. Howard Johnson Hotel franchise individually owned. A spokeswoman for the New Jersey-based corporation said it does not interfere with guest-related decisions as long as the site remains law-abiding. Leather and Lace representatives did not respond to emailed requests for comments to the article. So it'll be interesting to see what happened to this. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, that was one of my favorite stores when I lived in St. Louis.
Yeah. Laura, what was it you were saying a minute ago before we went on the air about oh, shoot.
I don't remember.
Okay, well, anyway, it may come back to me later, what we're talking about. But, so, I don't know. This really infuriates me because, a lot of these Southern Baptist groups, as we know, are ultra, Christian, ultra conservative. And yet, everybody, at some time or another, I would imagine, or at least a lot of folks, as part of the Southern Baptist Convention, probably have, porn somewhere, or, other kind of related paraphernalia of one another. They probably don't want anybody to know about. I don't know. I know that's just a huge generalization and stereotype.
If you have porn in your house, if you live in an apartment and you have porn in your house, you don't want the maintenance man to see it, don't ever put in a work order, okay?
I'm going to go on record as saying what I said earlier, which is basically if the Southern Baptists want to boycott the Howard Johnsons for something that Howard Johnson's took on that they must have known was going to be controversial, that's their business. I mean, it's free market talking. Howard Johnson gets to decide whether they would rather have the S&M convention or the Baptist convention. Nobody's obligating them to stay where they don't want to, and if the S&M convention turns out to be more profitable than the Baptists, then more power to them. But I bet they don't buy as many dirty movies.
Well, there was an interesting case with the Mormons, I think about a year ago, in Provo, Utah, where a guy had a video store and he was selling basically softcore porn in the little corner where you have to be 18 to get into. And Provo is Mormon Central. It's where Brigham Young University is. It's an enclave of very serious Mormons.
Right, and they just had the Olympics.
And so they hauled him up for obscenity. And the case dragged on. And the lawyer had this brilliant inspiration. There's this 3-prong test for obscenity. And one of the prongs is it has to violate community standards, right? And so obviously all these Mormons were saying, this violates our community standards. This guy got the hotel across the street from the courtroom to give them the records of which movies got ordered the most. It turns out that motels in Provo show a lot more porn movies than motels most places, about twice as many.
That's what it was.
And in fact,
That's what it was.
And in fact, they got the records of the satellite companies, which also give them numbers like that shows people at home watch twice as many porn movies in Provo than in most places.
Isn't that interesting?
They really like their porn in Provo, huh?
By the way, if you're just tuning in and haven't met him yet, this is Paul Wilson here. He's been a member for longer than I have of the Atheist Community of Austin.
Hi, folks.
Welcome.
And
just decided to jump from the community audience, and we'll be gentle.
well, let me interject here because I'm about to leave. One of the dangers of broadcasting on an on-call week, some people will lock themselves out because they got a dog who jumps from the door, and I have to go let him in.
No.
So I am gone. And Paul can take my chair.
Do you have some material to leave us with?
I got a couple of stories here.
Over an hour left.
Okay. Well.
You need to read them, but there they are.
Damn.
Well, I'm gone.
Right.
Bye, Vic.
Bye. See you next week. Vic Farrow, ladies and gentlemen. He'll be back next week.
Left the room.
Left the building. All right.
The building now. Oh.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, let me go ahead and segue into a different story.
Can I bring up something real quick?
Oh, sure.
Please do.
Wendy Britton from Seattle. Our Seattle guest.
I'm not sure how big Provo is, but generally the more religious a town is.
Oh, you might want to speak into the mic. I'm sorry.
Generally, I've lived in 7 different states, and I found that the more religious the community is, the more of the other side there has to be.
Yeah.
To balance, it's all about balance, and you find
There's a lot of desperation.
A lot of the big Baptist people on TV, they're always getting caught doing the worst, or these priests doing these things to the boys. When I lived in a small town that only had 45 people in my graduating class, I was the only girl in my English class that had a baby.
Wow.
Well, there's not a lot else to do in a small town.
Thank goodness my mom was the midwife in that town and she delivered all.
My goodness.
And she at least taught me not to get in that
That's got to be an exaggeration.
Yeah,
That's got to be an exaggeration.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. There were only 7 people in the class.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
But I'm the only one who didn't have a baby. So that's just what I'm saying. But it was a very religious town. Very. In fact, some of my grades were affected because I admitted that I wasn't religious. I told my teacher I was an atheist, and they said, your grade is going to be affected. So, yeah, my grades were affected. So.
And it's too small to make any kind of legal issue out of it, so nobody cares about Provo.
It's horrible.
That's what I had to say.
It just goes to show that sexually repressing people doesn't make them have less sex. It just makes them more curious about it.
That's right. And I wonder how that relates to the latest Catholic Church. And it's not just Catholics, but the latest, basically, clergy scandals all across the world where priests are molesting children. And
yeah, you mean that group that aren't allowed to have sex with anybody ever in their entire lives.
Right.
And they tell us how to live our love lives.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just sickened by that. Because you cannot repress somebody's sexuality and not expect it to be manifested in other ways.
There was a study commissioned by the Catholic Church a few years ago that concluded that the majority of seminarians training for the priesthood were emotionally immature, intellectually advanced, and emotionally retarded. And this is, it's very common for people going into the seminary to either be homosexual or confused about their sexual identity or just flat afraid of women. And I had a friend in high school who was sort of afraid of women, and he was planning on going into the priesthood. And then when he started getting along with women quite famously, when he was playing in a band, then somehow the idea of becoming a priest seemed less appealing. He ended up not doing that.
And I'm so glad you brought that up.
I guess if you go into the priesthood, at least you have an excuse for girls not liking you.
Oh no, it's a good excuse to run away. Well, see, I'm glad that Paul brings that up because there is an article this month in Time magazine. It's their cover story actually this week. I say this month, but Time's a weekly. But about that very thing, where the said exactly that. He said, and he's actually been accused of molesting several children, and he said that when he was an adolescent and he was feeling very conflicted about his sexuality, he said joining the clergy was basically a way to escape from that, to escape from the inner conflict that he was having. So, I'm not saying that can be applied to all priests who have been accused of molestation, but maybe it can. I don't know. I think that it's probably too broad a generalization to say that, but it's certainly interesting. And as a matter of fact, we'll get to some stories about that here in a moment. But first I wanted to turn to something from
The chat
Florida.
room is always one story behind us.
Oh, what are they on?
About Hustler now.
Oh, yeah. What did they say?
Somehow it got off on something about Jerry Falwell and September 11th being all the fault of abortionists and gays and atheists. I can't even remember where that came from, but
Well,
anyway.
Wasn't it Pat Robertson who was saying that? He was saying
No, they both
it was
were. They
Falwell who
were
was-
on one show
instigated it.
together.
Well,
And then
go ahead.
And then Falwell later apologized by saying, liberal media misquoted me.
please.
Okay, so Falwell said basically that the reason why the World Trade Center thing happened was because of secular humanism. That because we are so evil in America, God lifted his veil of protection.
His
such
magical shield.
Such, the faith-based missile defense or whatever. So that these fundamentalist Muslims could fly an airplane into a tower, right? And I just found it really striking that the last thing, of course, he's going to blame it on is fundamentalism, right? It has to be us. So I admit it, I did it. I blew up the World Trade Center.
Oh, don't joke about stuff like that these days.
That was a joke.
Okay, thanks. Well, actually, that kind of relates to a story that we had a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you heard about this, Paul, but you remember Bob Jones of Bob Jones University fame? He came
and in fact,
out,
I know someone who went there.
He came. Oh, really? He came out on record as saying that he no longer wants to be called a fundamentalist. The reason is not because he doesn't want to be a fundamentalist anymore, but because the word fundamentalist now has a bad name because of the terrorists. And I'm thinking, okay, so he doesn't want to be called fundamentalist. I think he wants to be called a protectionist or something like that. Is that what it was?
No, I think it was. It was something similar. I don't know if it was protectionist,
Right,
but that
he
sounds...
wants to protect the literal truth of the Bible or something.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at the time, look, Bob, it's not just word that connects fundamentalism to terrorism. So changing the way you describe yourself isn't going to change the fact that if you base your entire belief system on an assumption that everything you think and is written in this one book is inerrant, and there can be no argument about it, that's what leads to terrorism, not the word you use to describe it.
Especially when that book has God commanding people to commit genocide.
Right.
Among other atrocities.
Right. Massacring priests of other religions, things like
It's
that.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It still boggles my mind today, and I know a very simplistic thing, but, from thinking about it, but I don't understand, why people who believe that there's a God would think that God would allow something like September 11th to happen. Hello. I don't even want to spend a whole lot of time discussing that, because it's just, do you want to chime in on that one?
Even if that did prove that he existed, I wouldn't worship him.
Right.
That'd be the last thing I'd do.
Right. I think it's your moral obligation, if God allows that sort of thing to happen, to flip God off.
Yeah. Right. Sickening. Okay. Can we move on to Florida?
Please.
All right. Here's an interesting thing, and I'm going to be Jeff here just a second, since he's not today. We've talked about this issue several times in the past on the show.
Twice as loud.
Yeah, if I'm gonna be, well, I see I'm in the red on the monitor. Okay. Maybe that's loud enough. I don't know, we'll see. But this story is just outrageous. Okay, Governor Jeb Bush. This happened this week in Tallahassee, Florida. A special legislative session called by Governor Bush to pass a sweeping education measure ended in chaos Friday for a provision allowing students to pray and speak about religion in schools. And need I remind people, this is where I'm going to get on my Jeff soapbox a second, but need I remind people that religious folks are already allowed to pray in school if they want to. There is nothing in the Constitution that prohibits this. But, okay, the fight erupted in the Senate, which refused for the second time in 2 weeks to pass the school code to rewrite the bill because of the religion provision. And so, basically, this has been worked on for months by the Florida State Board of Education, where they basically want to include a provision that allows students to pray and speak of religion in schools. And Governor Bush, Jeb Bush, who we know is Shrub's brother, is wanting to support this measure. The religion provision would give students the right to pray, express their religious beliefs in homework, distribute religious literature, and speak to other students about religion. But again, this is something that they're already allowed to do. They're already allowed to do it. But again, to put it in the law, to me, just completely usurps what the Constitution is for. And because, again, they're already allowed.
They don't care if they're allowed to do it between classes. They want to do it during class and during the official announcements.
Right.
They want to, they want to tell you to come to Jesus and visit their church. They want the teachers to be helping to hand out the flyers. Mm-hmm. That's what they're after. Mm-hmm. And that's what not allowed to do.
No, right. So, it says here, too, this article, by the way, also from the Las Vegas Sun. The provision is based on guidelines, and again, this is taking the perspective that this is already allowed in the Constitution for, freedom of expression for religion, but provision is based on guidelines that the American Jewish Congress, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Anti-Defamation League have prepared to help school administrators across the country understand what courts have said can be done in schools. But several senators are worried about the impact of the language in the law that Governor Bush in Florida is proposing. We have a quote here from Senator Jenny Brown Waite, Republican, ironically enough, who says, quote, "We can have the church of devil worship, or we can have the church of witchcraft, or we can have the church of the Taliban." And I think that, that's no exaggeration, that by allowing, as Russell was pointing out, folks to distribute this kind of literature during class, where does it end? Where do you draw the line? At what point do you say, no, we cannot have the Church of the Taliban, in our school? If you open it up, you're basically saying, it's okay to start a theocracy. And that's intolerable. Absolutely intolerable. So, that's what
I think that actually kind of leads to this story that I picked
up. Good, yeah.
By the way, sort of prompted by a remark in the chat room, this wouldn't be the same Florida town where the governor made an official decree casting out Satan, would it?
Oh, no, that was...
That was Florida, right?
It was Florida, and I'm trying to think of the Jupiter, Florida.
How appropriate.
Where that happened. Yeah. Yeah, sure was.
Okay, well, we got something going on in Bradley County, Cleveland, Tennessee. Okay, hang on. Bradley County, one of several Tennessee counties voted recently to post the Ten Commandments, has been asked to extend its endorsement of religious documents in public places to include the 5 Pillars of Islam.
Yeah.
Guess what they said?
What?
Well, I'm assuming they said no, although it's not very clear from this article. But
Now, wait, I hate to interrupt, but Bradley County, is this in relation to where was the Scopes trial? And I realize it may not be in the article, but does anybody remember offhand? I know that was in Tennessee, and I know it was, I just can't think of the name of the county.
We've got so many atheists in a room who don't know that.
I know. Well, we'll have to look it up on the way. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt the flow.
Somebody says Ingus? Wait. Or maybe I'm just jumping in the middle of a different conversation.
Okay. Yeah, that's different.
Okay.
Okay, well, anyway.
Sorry. The county commission has been asked several times by Rachel Kate, a student at Cleveland High School, to post the Islamic document alongside the Old Testament one. This is not only a Christian nation, but a nation for everyone, which is true. Kate told the commission at its most recent meeting last week, "I think it is discriminatory not to decide on the 5 pillars of Islam just as you decided on the 10 commandments." Mm-hmm. Now, come on, fundamentalists, are you getting it yet?
Apparently not.
I mean, yeah, you can go ahead and get your stuff and slip your religious agenda in the back door of our legal system, but the ultimate result is going to be that the Muslims are also going to come in, that the Moonies are going to come in, the Scientologists,
the Satanists,
the Amway people,
and the polytheists, the Hindus and the Muslims.
Right, all those people. They get the right to equal treatment under the law. So even if they somehow succeeded in breaking down the wall of separation that's set up in the First Amendment, the result is not going to be that this becomes the Christian nation they want. It's going to be an anarchy of all religions.
Mm-hmm. And where will the truth be lost? I mean, I can see things getting so mucked up and so muddied and just, we're already having a crisis in this country right now dealing with science education. Let's just make science. Just not math, not literature, not anything else but science. Every state in this country has an issue in every school board, every school district to decide how are we going to teach science. We can't even get that straight. It just makes me sick. And then if you add religion into this mix, how will that convolute everything even further? Because every religion has its own idea of the actual truth, the word of God, or even how science ought to be taught.
Robert Pennock has a wonderful chapter in his book Tower of Babel, which is about the new intelligent design creationist movement. And what he says throughout this chapter is basically that creationists, in trying to get their nonsense taught side by side with evolution, basically do nothing but bash evolution. They don't promote a positive theory that can be considered scientific in any sense.
Well, they have a theory, and the miracle occurred.
Yeah, like in that cartoon, right? But I mean, they don't offer anything to replace it. They just assume that if evolution is out of the picture, then their religion is the biggest dog on the block, and they win. But what Pennock says in this chapter is basically introduces this other cult called the Raelians. Have you heard of them? They're a spaceship cult. They believe that the Bible is basically describing outer space aliens who came down to Earth and performed genetic experiments on us.
They're the people who are saying that they're going to fund the cloning of a human being real soon.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Great.
But what he says is, if the creationists ever succeeded in proving that evolution is false, all that winds up doing is giving the Raelians a leg to stand on. It doesn't, it doesn't put biblical creation on any firmer footing. It just, you might as well just say that we're created by space aliens.
Isn't that kind of what they are saying, though, when they say that there's a God?
Well,
What is
kind
the
of, but
difference,
they don't
after
see it
all,
that
between
way.
a god and a powerful alien?
I don't know.
They're powerful beings who,
Who are aliens?
don't have the same kind of existence of us. They live in some other kind of dimension or something, and they can do amazing things with powers we can't comprehend. I actually claim that there is no difference between a god and a space alien,
No,
except how you feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
Right, and if the space alien turns out to be a marauding, mass-murdering bastard, then I think we have the obligation, like you said, we have the obligation not to worship these people, these things, but to flip them the bird.
I don't understand how, in one person's mind, they can think that the whole thing about God is like believable, and that when they hear about aliens, they laugh like, that's just preposterous.
Well, a lot of
one mind
Christians
think
do
that
accept
differently about such a
all the
similar
other
theory?
crap. I mean, to me, that's always what the Harry Potter thing has been about. I mean, if you start with this belief that there's all this supernatural stuff, then you are going to wind up accepting all of it, including, Harry Potter isn't a cool fictional story made up out of an author's head. It's a description of what really happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And it's inspired by Satan. Anyway.
Did you say Santa or Satan?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact.
Oh, are we still on Harry Potter?
Well, in a way, yes. A maverick fertility specialist by the name of Dr. Saravino Antoni... I'm sorry, let me read his name very slowly so I pronounce it correctly. Antinori. Has been developing a cloning program at his Rome clinic. Now, apparently a lot of his colleagues feel that this guy is a charlatan. He's, not doing any kind of legitimate research. But I'm just going to report what he said.
And he's being very irresponsible.
Yeah, that he's being very irresponsible. But he claims that he has cloned the first human baby, and that this baby right now is in a mother's womb as we speak. A woman is said to be 8 weeks pregnant with the world's first cloned baby. And again, this claim was made by Dr. Severino Antinori. He made the announcement at a conference on genetic engineering in Abu Dhabi, according to a report in Gulf News. And this article itself is from the News Telegraph out of the UK. His office refused to comment on the report last night, meaning April 3rd. A spokesman at the International Center for the Study of Physiopathy of Human Reproduction would not confirm or deny the claim. So apparently this might be, just complete fabrication, completely ridiculous.
Or if it's not, it might be very sad because the cloning things people do, basically most of the embryos don't make it. And most of the ones that do have genetic abnormalities. So it's a good way to create a kid with defects.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because as a matter of fact, the article says just that. Even if his effort has achieved a human pregnancy, doctors have a long way to go. Animal research suggests that at best, cloning could only succeed in around one attempt in every 100, producing larger numbers of stillbirths, miscarriages, and deformed children. So, I don't know if this is true, but the guy who cloned Dolly, Professor Ian Wilmot of the Rosalind...
Salvador Dali?
Yeah. Really, Dolly.
He's alive.
He's alive again. I'm pulling my mustache, but I don't have one. It's very surreal. Yeah, okay, twiddle, 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 I'll twiddle paws. The scientist who cloned Dolly, Professor Wilmot of the Rosalind Institute near Edinburgh, who led the team that perfected the nuclear transfer technique to clone mammals, said last night, "It sounds extremely unlikely." So, in the past, and this is to continue that quote, in the past he... Antinori claimed that he cloned pigs and that he cloned monkeys, and there's never been any demonstration that was true. You should be extremely skeptical. So again, who knows if this is true? Antinori wouldn't comment, so it's unclear, but just thought we'd let that out and let people research on their own to see if that's really true. Okay. And since it came up in kind of this related story. Okay. So, Russell, do you have any other segues?
I not seem to, unless you want to hear more about Moonies. But
okay, well that's all right. I can go ahead and do this other one. This is also related to schools. This is international news out of the UK. The government.
Oh, by the way, sorry.
Yeah,
In from the chat room.
Yeah.
Dayton, Tennessee is where the
Dayton.
Scopes trial
Thank you. Who said?
took place.
Can we give?
You gotta back up a little.
Okay.
Hyper Puppy.
Thank you, Hyper Puppy. Okay. Great. This is out of the Guardian newspaper in the UK. The government's plans to expand the number of faith schools were dealt a blow Thursday night after teachers signaled their support for a move toward a universally secular school system. So this is some news out of the UK. Yay!
Aren't they already pretty secular over there?
Thank you for that applause.
Yeah, they have a state religion, but they're about half atheist.
Yeah. And ironically enough, Tony Blair, after the September 11th attacks, he was very magnanimous in his support of the secular community. And
Blair is way cool.
He is. And, ironically enough, both of his parents, according to this article, are sending their 3 children to top-performing Catholic state secondary schools in London. So I was kind of surprised by that.
Well, I've actually known a number of atheist parents who sent their children to Catholic schools because the fact is that they do very well in academic subjects. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a reason for that, but I can't think of it right now.
Well, then you just tell them some prophylactic truth before you send them to school.
Well, Laura, I don't know if you want to comment on this at all, but I know that you went to and I'm talking into the mic, so that's why I'm looking at you. But I don't know if you can comment on this at all, but I know that you went to a parochial school. Is that right?
I went to a private school that was supposedly Episcopalian, but the only religious thing we ever did was once a week in assembly we said the Lord's Prayer. And that's it. That's the only religious thing we did the entire time. We didn't take Bible classes. We didn't do any special things on any special holidays. We didn't do anything. Just that. And the academics were great.
Good. Yeah. So I guess,
there's a lot of variety.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was in Houston?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm always very skeptical about parochial schools just because, I worry about what they teach kids about math and science. But I don't know. Does anybody have horror stories about that? Because it's an area that I really have no direct knowledge.
I don't worry too much about math. It's hard to screw up math even with. Unless
I would hope so.
Unless you're one of the people who really believes that pi is 3, like it says in the Bible.
Yeah.
But other than that,
well, luckily the Catholic Church isn't fundamentalist, and so the Pope has come out and said it's not bad to believe in evolution. Evolution looks like it's true. Mm-hmm. And so they try and reconcile that. They still like the idea that God still sticks his finger in every now and then, there's a soul and stuff like that. But at least they're not saying that things that are obviously true are false.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catholics I've known seem to be a much better breed.
Now, this whole birth control thing I got problems with.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, that's why I'm here, but... I was the fifth of 4 children.
Oh.
Wow.
Witness.
In a Roman Catholic family.
Mm-hmm.
Are your siblings still Roman Catholic?
Nope.
No. What was
One of them sort of is. She goes, but I don't know if she's really Catholic.
Did your parents ever say we don't believe in Roman Catholicism anymore?
Well, basically, my father never did, but he had to sign a thing saying that he'd be willing to raise the kids the way my mother and the Pope thought was best, and or he couldn't marry my mother.
Oh.
And so we were raised, and almost all of us completely ditched it. Mm-hmm.
Were you all pretty young when that, or be teenagers, or?
I ditched it in 3rd grade.
Wow, yeah.
My siblings waited till college.
Yeah. Wendy, what about you? You had an atheist upbringing?
Yeah, atheist from the get-go. I was born right the first time. No
yeah. Yeah. So you're
But without that early sexual repression, how can you ever enjoy kinky sex?
I know, exactly. Hard.
Well, good. So we have quite a hybrid, quite a hodgepodge here of backgrounds. Yeah. And
Yeah, you know me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from a total atheist family with my physicist father and everything.
Yeah. And your
In
mom,
fact,
too, was an atheist?
Let's see. My mom is kind of a wishy-washy New Age theist, which is fine. Last time I visited her, we went to her church, and it was one of those things where you go and sit and sing whatever you want, and don't mention a specific notion of God, and everybody just holds hands and feels happy. That's with me. It's not my thing, but whatever.
Yeah.
But my father's father, or both my father's parents were atheists, and most of their parents were atheists, as far as I remember. So that makes me a fourth-generation atheist. And my son, who will be along in 2 months, will hopefully be a fifth-generation atheist.
That's right. Just 9 weeks to go.
9 weeks.
Benjamin Jack. Oh, wait.
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, let's see.
I'm halfway through the show, just so you know.
Yeah. Tim, I don't know. Did you want to get in on this at all? How were you raised?
Are we desperate now?
We're going for how were you raised stories.
Let's see. My dad's a Lutheran minister, and he was a pre-engineering student before he went into seminary. So I read a lot of things in his library, including his religious books, including his science books, and he was a big science fiction fan as well. So pretty much, I blame my atheism on my father, although he doesn't know that. He still is a Lutheran minister.
Yeah.
But basically, when my atheism started off as a seed of, why should I believe in what my parents believe in? Is it just by the sheer fate of whom I'm born from? My religion is chosen, or do I choose my religion myself? And from then on, it became a 5-year period after college where I tried to decide, to me it's the most important thing is if there is a supreme being, if there is a soul, if there is an eternity in which I need to live, I need to decide how I want to live that. And so after a long time of deciding what I believed in, what I know, and what I wanted to choose to believe, atheism is the best fit for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm a first-generation atheist.
Yay!
I credit my atheism to a Catholic mother who taught all her kids to think for themselves and then got very upset when they did.
Well, you weren't supposed to think that far.
Yeah, right. Not enough to disagree or think critically. No.
Yeah, I would ask my mom, why are we here? What's the world? And I'd be like 10 years old. Why? I would try to phrase the question. I didn't know how to phrase it, and she just said, "Just be good and happy and do good and all that." And I said, "Well, what about all this stuff my friends are telling me about God and stuff? And what happens when you die?" She said, "Oh, that's it. Game over. One chance."
But at least the boogeyman's not going to get.
Yeah.
Why is the ant here? What happens when an ant dies?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Uncle gets sad.
There are those...
Not that kind of ant.
And where does the fun go when you blow it out?
Exactly.
And where did my document go when there was a power surge?
It's got to be off in heaven having a good time with other documents now.
There are a lot of those tricky questions that little kids ask. That when you're real young, the religious people just sort of put you off and say, "Oh, you're just asking that because you're so immature." I mean, stuff like real basic stuff like who made God. I mean, that's something Caitlin goes around asking religious people.
Right, well, I actually had a really seriously hard time in second grade and I had stomach ulcer. I was a very neurotic little kid.
Yeah.
And in general, little kids don't get stomach ulcers, or if they do, they go away in a few weeks. I had a stomach ulcer for many months because I was sure I was going to hell. Because I couldn't love Jesus. Because how can you love a guy who'll burn you forever if you don't?
Yeah, that's right.
And I sort of asked my parents that, and they didn't want to talk about it, and I just felt like, well, okay, then I guess I'm going to hell. And I didn't tell them that, I couldn't love Jesus. I was therefore going to go to hell, because I didn't want to upset them.
Mm-hmm. So you kept it all inside and got an ulcer.
So I kept it inside, and I was, living in horrible fear for months and months and months. And then eventually a very nice adult said, you know, a whole lot of people don't believe that stuff. And I checked it out and found out a whole lot of really smart people don't believe that stuff, including most really smart people, like most scientists, 90% of your outstanding scientists.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Most of your philosophers.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm saying though, a lot of these basic questions get asked by kids, and when they're real young, they just get sort of pushed aside and say that's not important. You'll understand someday. But you find as you get older that they still don't get answered very well. They do. There are a lot of books out there on evangelism that try to give you like very clever answers to those, like, oh, God doesn't need to be made because he's outside of time and stuff like this. But, I mean, you know, real basic scientifically satisfying or morally satisfying answers, I mean, the answers that you get are all over the map. And there don't seem to, I mean, even when you get older, no really good answers come up. Right. And yet they tell you that when you're older, you'll understand them.
Right. Answers most people get from their parents or whatever amount. Well, the Lord works in mysterious ways. Right. The Lord has a plan. You know.
Which is a cop-out.
Right.
You know, shut up and stop asking
questions. And they
questions.
mostly just put you off and hope that you'll forget that you never got a decent answer to the basic questions like the problem of evil.
And isn't it interesting that the adults who don't have an answer to those questions, it doesn't bother them.
Right.
I don't understand that.
Well, I find it weird that most kids aren't terrified like I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because when you're told those things about you will be tortured forever, holy mackerel. This is heavy shit.
And you know, I know the answer you get to something like how can a good God torture people forever when they don't even know any better or something like that, and they deflect the question by saying, well, now you know better, so you had to avoid being tortured forever and start loving Jesus. Even if you accept that, there's still going to be several acquaintances, you know, who you can't affect their behavior, and they're going to wind up being tortured forever. Yeah. And, you know, if it's your grandmother or something like that who's an atheist, this has got to keep bothering you.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get it up to love this guy who was going to torture my sister forever.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, wait a minute, I wouldn't do that.
Right.
That makes me nicer than God, doesn't it?
No, you just don't work in mysterious ways.
And since he's supposed to be infinitely loving, we got a transfinite set theory problem here.
I bet you didn't think of it in those terms back then.
No. That's why you got the ulcer. If you could have rationalized out that way, it would have been okay. Well, yeah, and I
would have gotten an ulcer from Russell's paradox, actually. So.
Oh.
I don't have paradox. Oh. You mean the set of all things that do not contain themselves, or something? The set of all sets that don't contain themselves.
Right.
Wait, I missed that.
Okay, it's like this. Here, I mean, you know, we're running material here, so let's talk some logic, because that's what Jeff would do.
WWJD.
There's a well-known logical conundrum which basically goes like this. There's a small town that only has one barber, and the barber shaves all the people in town, but only the people who don't shave themselves. Okay?
Yeah.
So there's a question. Does the barber shave himself or not?
Basically, if he does, he doesn't, and if he doesn't, he does. So there's a contradiction there somewhere.
They call it tautology.
No,
it's a paradox.
It's a paradox.
Oh.
See, I mean, if he does shave himself, then he's one of the people who shave.
He's naturally bald.
He still has to shave.
Naturally bald.
That's how God would have arranged it.
That's cheating.
I know exactly, and that's exactly why I said it.
Well, if he does shave himself, then he's one of the people who shaves himself, and therefore, by his own rules, he's not allowed to shave himself, because he only shaves people who don't shave themselves. But he shaves all people who don't shave themselves. So if he doesn't shave himself, then he does. That's Russell's paradox.
It's a catch-22.
Yeah.
That's what paradox means. It's a logic catch-22.
Well, but what about Wendy's assertion that he could be naturally bald?
Maybe they're just trying to say that he's schizophrenic.
Well,
he just doesn't know.
He doesn't say he doesn't shave.
Well, he makes his hair invisible, just like God makes his hair invisible.
Except for the ball stuff.
We know it.
The barber could be a woman.
No, we said you.
Oh.
Still have to shave legs.
Wait, wasn't this an Italian barber?
Stop that.
Well, speaking of upbringing, I just have to give my parents credit because when I was growing up, we did look into some parochial schools for me to go to. And I remember we went to a few, and I had gone to a Montessori school as a little kid, which is kind of equivalent to a kindergarten, but it's not, it's like Montessori, based on Maria Montessori's method of teaching kids. But anyway, so after I left there and about to start kindergarten, looking for a good kindergarten, so we were going to some parochial schools, and I just remember thinking there was such a different, kind of, well, it wasn't kind of, it was a very oppressive feeling when we would walk into these schools and there would be this woman, and I kid you not, this is not a stereotype. I just vividly remember this. I was a little kid, again, coming from Montessori where everything's touchy-feely and you play with all the other kids on the ground at recess. And then we went in and there was this woman. She was dressed in black with the high collar and she, had a cross around her neck. And I thought, I don't want to go here. and my dad said, he said in the car, when we got back in the car, he said, so what do you think of this school? And I said, I didn't like it. And he said, I didn't either. So that was kind of the end of that. But, I always really appreciate what my parents did, which was, they said, they never really told me until I got older what it was they really believed. They said, if you ever want to go to church, we'll take you. They said, we just haven't found a church that we like. So, if you ever get to the point where you feel like you want to go, we'll go with you. And, I never did. I never really...
Did they?
Yeah, my mom was raised Methodist and my dad was raised Roman Catholic, so...
But did they find a church that they liked?
No. No. No, see, the thing was, I think they were always atheists, or at least my dad is. My mom, I think, is more agnostic, but I think now she's an atheist, more so than she used to be.
Tell her to get the damn fence.
I'm telling you, Mommy, I did not brought up that bit. No, I think she is now. I think she is. I can say that she's an atheist because I think she is, but anyway... yeah. So I always appreciated that, just having the choice. And I went to church with friends, and I just could never get into it. It was just, ugh.
I went to church with friends for a long time,
It's
and
so
then
judgmental.
finally, in 1981 or something, I just made a resolution, New Year's resolution, never to go to church again. Yeah. And I've gone to Unitarian a few times because it's kind of interesting to hear them give the sort of atheist sermon on Easter. It's funny. Now, I don't know where he was the next day, but he wasn't there. How embarrassing for those guys. That's a Unitarian sermon. But I'm also very appreciative of my parents because they've always been supportive and just let me decide on my own. But if I ask a question, they just tell it like it is or what they're thinking. Yeah. And I brought home a guy to my mom. I let her meet him.
And did she keep him?
No. I invited someone to have dinner with us after September 11th. Yeah. And he is a sort of Jewish for Jesus guy. And he basically said to, he said to my mom, I know Wendy doesn't believe in God, and she tells me you don't either. Why is that? And she goes, because it's stupid. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I hope I didn't offend you. And then,
we love you, Mom.
Yeah. And then my dad, he recently went blind from diabetes in 99. So it was funny because we were walking along and this little kid goes, watch out for that blind guy. And he's like, I'm not blind, I'm out of sight. So he's like always, he's always positive about everything, and he hasn't changed, he hasn't crossed over to the other side. Yeah. It seems like a lot of people stay agnostic all their lives until they get into a situation where they could die or something's happening, and it makes me sad that they just get weak and get preyed upon by all those religious people.
Well,
It's sad.
this thing that they say that is so false about how there's no atheists in foxholes.
Oh, that's
Tell it to the
bullshit.
Israeli military.
Yeah.
Who do you think won those wars? Who do you think drove those tanks? Who do you think was in foxholes? About a third to half of your Israelis are atheists or agnostics. And, I'm not sure whether the fundamentalists are aware of that and in their support for Israel, but it's one of the most atheist countries in the world. Unfortunately, they've also got this state religion and this ultra-Orthodox group of fundamentalists. And so, but Jews make nice counterexamples to a lot of generalizations.
Yeah.
Isn't there a website called Atheists in Foxholes? David was
there
talking
might
about
be.
that one time?
There might be. Yeah,
There's
we ought to
plenty
put
of
that on
people
there.
that go on there and indicate that
Yeah,
they were,
I don't know if anybody in the chat room is aware of that,
in
but
foxholes.
we could put a solicitation out. If anybody's heard of that, let us know.
Don't hold your breath, though.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with the woman I work with. She's a Christian, and I was telling her, she was asking about the atheist group, and she said, well, what's that like? What do y'all talk about? And I think she's Methodist or Baptist, I don't know. But anyway, I was just telling her, that we're a social group and we get together and we talk about, atheism, but we also do other things, we game group
Politics,
and politics, and everything. I mean, and she just said that, she wasn't at all judgmental about it. She said, I've never really thought about it much. She said my own beliefs. She said I was just raised this way, and but she definitely is a believer. I mean, no question. But she said I've just never really thought about it a whole lot, and it just really kind of struck me that she said that, because
I've had a lot of time.
yeah, I kind of think, well, how could you not think about it? And of course we were at work, so we couldn't really get into a great long conversation about it, but it just kind of made me wonder if a lot of Christians and believers in general don't. Yeah, I mean, I think it gives people a large amount of comfort rather than making them just purely sheep.
Well, I think
But
a lot of the comfort it gives you is solving the problems that it creates.
Yeah.
That most of it,
I agree with that.
That basically you're raised to think you need Big Daddy in the sky's approval. You're raised to think your soul is in danger. And if you're not raised that way, in general, it's not, you don't need that comfort.
Yeah.
It basically, the good it does you is mostly repairing damage that it did you.
Yeah, and that's something that's kind of universal to all religions and cults and con men, is basically, and advertisers. I mean, advertising is something that we're all familiar with, and what they basically do is show you something that you don't have, and say, if you bought our product, then you would have this. But, you weren't even aware that you wanted it until you saw the commercial.
Yeah.
You create a void, and then you fill it.
Right. And we'll make sexuality sinful, so you'll need to confess your sins, and then you'll come get us the goods on you.
Oh, gosh. I know. And even as a kid growing up, well, not a little kid, but as an adolescent, I kind of wondered, and this is really going to sound bizarre, but I wondered, priests become related by hearing about people's sexual confessions.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it just seems so obvious, It's like, here's somebody who's been sexually
They don't have
repressed.
that little private box for nothing,
Yeah. It's got to be true.
You notice, sometimes you can sort of vaguely see through a little screen, but you can't see below the
I mean, you just cannot take away someone's sexuality. It's just so much a part of who they are, and I mean,
yeah, but you can make them feel really bad about it, and then they give extra money to the church or whatever.
I don't understand either how someone could believe in something that says that that's okay, to take that away from people. Yeah. I don't get it. And it's not just Catholics. I mean, it's, religion across the board. And not all religions either believe in that, but, I mean, by and large.
Too many do.
Yeah.
Partly because it's an effect brainwashing technique. That basically, if your religion pervades your whole life, it's such a big thing that it's harder to question. It's not something you can get outside of and look at. If it just pervades the way you think about everything, it's hard to see how to think without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was one of the big secrets of why Christianity became successful, is that more than Judaism, it made sex a religious issue.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it's in the
Sexual
Bible, too.
repression, has all kinds of interesting psychological properties.
Right. Same as sleep deprivation. I mean, it's just one of many tools that can be used.
And of course, in the Bible, when Eve eats the apple, that's when sin starts, and she shouldn't have done that because.
Right, but I don't think Jews have the same sexual hang-ups, and I think it's Christians who stick in all that sex symbolism.
Like sex on the Sabbath is a Mishnah, a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got a joke
Hey, you're not
for
supposed to be working. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I've got a joke
And
for
you're
you.
supposed to make sure
Okay.
your wife gets pleasure out of it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
A priest and a rabbi are sitting together, and the priest says to the rabbi, hey, I understand that people of your religion aren't allowed to eat pork. And the rabbi says, yeah, right. And he says, have you ever tried pork? And he says, well, yes, I once had it, and I didn't realize that that's what it was. And I had some pork. And the priest says, pretty good, isn't it? And he says, well, yeah, I have to admit it's not bad. And so they sit in silence for a minute, and then the rabbi says, hey, I understand that, your sect isn't allowed to have sex. And the priest says, that's true. And he says, have you ever had sex? And the priest says, yes, I'm afraid I succumbed to the temptations of the flesh one time. And the rabbi says, better than pork, isn't it?
Oh, man. Oh.
Thank you. I've got another thing that might or might not put us on another topic.
Yeah.
There's a comic strip that I like that only appears online. It's at pvponline.com, and this week they've been running a segment on John Edward.
Oh, crossing over guy. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I had a priest and rabbi joke.
Oh. Okay.
So a priest, a rabbi, and a duck walk into a bar, and the duck says, "What is this? Some kind of joke?" Sorry. That was one of my favorites when I was a child.
Yeah.
So if you go to pvponline.com and check out Monday's strip, you'll see two people. Well, one of them's not really a person, but that's just a character in this strip.
It's kind of like a big old blob
It's Skull the Doll.
Okay.
So the guy comes over and says, "What are you watching, Skull?" And he says, "It's called Crossing Over with John Edward. He's a psychic who reunites people in the studio audience with loved ones who have died." And then they hear the TV saying, "I'm sensing someone who once had a job or knew someone with a job. Anyone? Someone who ate food and slept in a bed, possibly a man or a woman. Someone who had hair, long or maybe short hair." And then the person in the audience gasp, "My dad had short hair and ate food." At this point, the people watching TV say,
There's someone in the audience
do it.
who's kind of lonely, and people think they're a little stupid.
Gullible.
And then the people watching TV, one of them comments, "How does he do it?" The other one says, "He's psychic." And meanwhile, John Edward is saying, "I'm sensing someone who had letters in their name." You know how that goes.
Yeah,
we
that's
love to Josh, John Edward here. What do you guys think about cold reading?
Cold reading?
Cold reading.
Michael Shermer gives a
maybe.
good example of that in How We Believe, of how he went on the radio and did this and convinced people he was a psychic. And then he told them, "No, I'm not."
Yeah. Have you not heard about cold
I
reading?
haven't.
This is how many professional psychics do their job, and most of them don't even do it all that well. But if you do the phonopsychic thing, then that's probably the kind of thing that happens to you. And basically what they do is fish for information out of you.
Yeah.
So
You're talking about
that
free
comics.
screeners, or like when you call the psychic line, are you since you're not probably directly talking to, let's say, Miss Cleo?
Well, no, you don't need to be pre-screened. Basically, you just have to really want to believe that the person on the other end is psychic.
Oh, okay.
And not realize
So
how
you
revealing
give
a lot
them-
of the things you're
so-
saying are.
So it doesn't
if
matter
you
who
have
it is.
a skilled
just,
cold
okay.
reader, you will give them details, and you will think that they provided it for you. I mean, obviously, the thing in the comic strip was an extreme example, but I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on. I mean, John Edward will say something like, "I'm sensing someone whose name starts with the letter M,"
Yeah.
and then the person will have to think, "Oh, wait, my uncle's name was Mark."
Yeah.
Or else they'll think, I don't know anybody with an M, and as hard as they think of it. But see, M is a really common letter for a name to start
It's
with.
not like
so,
Z.
So
Like
chances
Muhammad,
are,
the most-
Yeah.
so chances are they'll say, "Oh, Uncle Mark," and then the psychic will say, "That's it. I'm hearing Uncle Mark."
Yeah.
And see, you fed them that information, but you feel like they gave it to them. And then he says, "Okay, now Uncle Mark, is he someone who's crossed over or not?" And then you say, "Yeah," and you say, "I'm sensing a lot of pain here," something like that, because he's dead, right?
And there's a whole bunch
I mean-
of tricks based on statistics. Like, a good cold reader may know which names were popular for name kids in which decade. So just by the name of the caller, he can make a reasonable guess as to how old they are and how likely they are to have grown children and things like that. And by looking for a few little pieces of evidence of like what their age is, he doesn't have to ask them how old they are. And then can guess that they're likely to be calling because they're concerned about their kids. And so that theory becomes more probable. So he probes for other things that he can use to confirm whether they're worried about their kids, and then come out and say,
And this-
"Are you worried about your kids?" And if you don't understand how they're using statistics to figure this stuff out, it looks like magic.
I don't know. Do you think?
Oh, if they're calling in on a phone line, all they need is caller ID. They pop up the internet and look at a name, and they know all about you. Your zip code, your
Well,
credit rating?
that can be risky.
address.
I mean,
They might. Yeah.
they
could.
might get the wrong person.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean,
But I mean,
don't know. Do
another-
you think that John Edward really uses
Oh
these
yeah,
techniques?
absolutely.
I thought he did.
Watch
I don't
him.
know.
He's not even very good. He gets.
Right.
I mean, first of all, John Edward tapes 10 hours of film to get a 1-hour show, so that if he really flubs it with a bunch
leave
of
that part
people, they just don't put it on the show.
Okay.
So to begin with, you're only getting the 1/10 of the crossing over encounter, so that
He gets lucky.
where he was lucky, and and next of all, once he's lucky, he get off on a streak, because if you tell him, if you tell him that, yeah, my uncle was sick and he died, he's going to say something like, "Okay, I'm sensing some kind of problem with the head area or maybe the chest," and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, he had heart problems."
Right. Something
And-
very vague.
And so it's a combination of completely random guesses and waiting for you to give more information, and lucky or sort of logical jumps which people don't notice going on.
Yeah. I'd like to do a show about why people believe that. I mean, what's the chat
Jeff in
room?
the chat room says, "I wish John Edwards would cross."
Thanks, guest. Oh, man.
Of course, you remember there was that whole thing where he was going to try to communicate with the people in the World Trade Center, but that got pulled.
I can't believe the insensitivity.
It was just in
and-
terrible taste.
Oh, absolutely horrible. What a favorite.
Could be Luke.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, we want to reach that.
Unfortunately.
Oh, never mind. Yeah. Well,
it's sad that people let themselves get taken advantage of
it
that
is.
way.
And what's really sad about it is a lot of it is intertwined with religion, because again, you have a bunch of people who want to believe in a higher being, and in this
magic
case,
in general.
yeah, magic in general, and John Edward knows it, and all these charlatans who take advantage of people and their belief systems, they know it, and they have no question that, hey, I can make money off people who believe that they want to talk to their loved one from the World Trade Center, and it just makes me sick. As it should. So, on the other hand, I also would like to see a show that investigates why people believe this. Have that same studio audience who is on Crossing Over, maybe have a show where you interview those folks after the show and ask them, what is it about what's said that brings you comfort? I mean, or why is it that you feel that he's really talking to your loved one?
I don't think that's a mystery. I don't think there's any show in that, because it's obvious that people want to believe that their dead relatives are so happy. I mean, you notice that when people are talking to John Edward, and John Edward will tell them stuff like, well, they're in heaven, or they're happy, or they want you to know that they love you. He never says, oh yeah, your uncle is roasting in hell right now, and he hates you, by the way.
And I think there's more to it than that.
What they want to hear.
But there's more to it than that, because I could say to somebody, look, I'm an atheist, and I don't believe in what John Edward says, because I don't believe that he has any more knowledge about the afterlife than I do. Mm-hmm. And, to approach it from that perspective and say, here you are, what makes you think that this guy, John Edward, has some special gift that enables him to talk to your dead relatives where you can't, and where I can't, and where Paul can't, and where Russell can't, everybody in the room can't? Why do you believe that John Edward can't?
Dead relatives are God. By and large, they disagree with most other people who can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess God lies.
I'll tell you what'll happen if you ask those questions. You won't get an answer. What you'll get is a lot of anger and lashing out at you, saying, why are you trying to destroy my happiness? And they don't want to think about their reasons for believing. All they know is that when they have that answer that Uncle Mark is in heaven and he loves me, or whatever, hopefully not in the same way a Catholic priest loves me. Sorry, low blow.
No.
But I mean, once they know that their deceased spouse is in heaven, let's say, and happy, that makes them feel good, and they don't want to overanalyze it and get rid of that good feeling.
But why make them feel good? There's no proof.
So what? If they can convince themselves to believe it, then they'll get that good feeling, whether or not they feel compelled to investigate it.
Well, also, an amazing amount of, there's lots of psychological studies that show that an amazing amount of belief fixation, how you come to believe a particular thing, is social in ways that you don't recognize. That if you're at a table full of people who agree, you'll be much more certain than if you're at a table full of people who disagree, on average. And so people telling you that you should find that stuff credible makes it much easier to actually find it credible. And it feels like you're making that judgment in your own gut, but people are actually a lot more vulnerable to other people's opinions unconsciously than they realize consciously, which is a big trap.
And a lot of people would probably, a lot of Christians or a lot of believers would say that about atheism. They'd say, well, in this group, you're just hanging around a bunch of other atheists, so that's why you believe, and that there's no God.
Right. I'm not saying which positions that military are. It's
but that's
careful out there.
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
But one of the things that a lot of people take as evidence of religion is a personal religious experience. And there's some new scientific data on personal religious experiences that is really, really fascinating.
Is this the stuff you were telling us about 2 weeks ago?
Right.
Good stuff.
Okay, so there's this book out there that's written by Christians who are neurophysiologists studying spiritual states, mystical states, and studying like, a Catholic nun and a Buddhist monk and whatever, and doing brain scans of them. And looking to see what regions of the brain are active and inactive in these mystical states where they feel one with the out of body and one with the universe and stuff like that. And the really great thing about this book is that the first 2/3 of it makes it pretty darn clear that this is a malfunction of the brain.
But wait, I thought you said they are believers.
Right,
Scientists.
and then they spend the last third of the book trying to convince you that God made it malfunction that way on purpose.
Oh, how bizarre.
So the basic idea is that a whole lot of ecstatic states, which have a lot of things in common, including sexual ecstasy, dancing frenzy, chanting, lots of things are based on involving rhythmic motion, rhythmic sounds, rhythmic motions, drumming, things like that. So in all kinds of religions, you have a lot of repetitive rhythm kinds of things going on, whether it's chanting Om Mani Padme Hum or Sufi dancing or whatever.
Yeah.
Or call and response in gospel music or whatever. And it appears that what happens is that there's a region of the brain that is processing rhythmic information and it gets overloaded. And that region of the brain is connected to a different region of the brain, which is where the really interesting thing happens. And that region shuts down because the first region I'm talking about stops sending it a signal it needs to function. So it shuts down, says, I don't know what to do. And that part of your brain goes dark on the brain scan. And what that region of the brain does is very interesting. It turns out that the way people perceive the world, there's different parts of the brain that handle things that are near you and things that are far from you. So basically things that are roughly within arm's reach. Your brain keeps very good track of where things are and where your limbs are so that you don't hit things with your hands and so that when you reach for something you can get it. It doesn't keep track of stuff that's out of reach nearly as well. And there's a region of the brain that keeps track of the difference and integrates those two to make your view of the world seamless so that you don't know there's different stuff going on and how you...
Because the brain would be overwhelmed? Is this why? Because the brain itself would just self-destruct?
No, it's like you wouldn't want it to look like the world changed at your fingertips.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
So it actually is processing information differently, but it integrates it well so you don't notice.
Okay.
So, but it's actually keeping much higher resolution information and keeping track of relative positions of things in your environment and your limbs and things. So what happens is that region of the brain shuts down. And that region of the brain is the region of the brain that keeps track of where you are and where everything else starts. So when you feel one with the universe, it's because you're failing to make this basic distinction that your brain normally makes unconsciously of what's you and what's not, right? And people get uncoordinated. Like, and this happens during real sex too, getting weak in the legs and stuff like that. You know, same basic deal.
Yeah.
And so people basically lose this kinesthetic sense of where the parts of their body are. They literally don't know their ass from their elbows. And they lose the sense of where their body begins and the rest of the world, body ends and where the rest of the world begins, so they literally don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. And that is what, cross-culturally, over the world, that appears to be the main thing going on with these mystical states where people for this mystical union with the universe.
Well,
it's that they do not know
Let me
their
jump
ass
in here
from a
a
hole in the
second.
ground.
What is it then that, okay, just to back up, the researchers themselves are believers?
Yes.
Okay. So by doing this study, they were trying to prove exactly opposite of what they believe?
Well, they basically say all of this is happening in the brain.
Yeah.
They believe that all mental states supervene on the brain. You know, no brain, no mental states. But then they basically say, we think God stuck his finger in and made the brain like that so that we could feel that sense of union.
Okay.
And the book is titled Why God Won't Go Away, which I thought it was going to be a different kind of book.
That's fascinating.
Why do people assign? I've had that experience, and I didn't assign that experience to God.
Right.
Why do people assign that experience to God?
Well, in a lot of perceptual things, there's what are called bottom effects, where sensory information is coming in and low-level things are processing it and presenting it to you. And there's top-down effects, where what you're expecting actually affects what you perceive. What you're open to affects what you perceive. And so, basically, you tend to give something credence if you have a framework for understanding it already. So you're more likely to actually have that perceptual misfire if you think that perceptual misfire is not a misfire and you're perceiving something real.
That's fascinating. Well, I hope everybody can go check out the book. Unfortunately, I wish we had more time to talk, but we've got about 2 minutes left, so we're going to start wrapping stuff up today.
Right.
But we want to thank our very special studio audience for being here. Thanks to Paul Wilson, to Wendy Britton from Seattle. She'll be with us another week. We're going to do the games thing on Monday and do the Austin circuit. Thank you
Wendy,
to Tim Burnett.
who of course runs our wonderful reminder list, which is, do you remember what that's at?
The exact address we don't know, but we'll get it to you.
Okay.
_ profit, non-profits
_ radio show
at Yahoo.
Groups.yahoo. Groups.yahoo.com.
Just search for that. You just put in
Too long
nonprofits.
and my brain is misfiring.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you probably could. Yeah.
Maybe.
And thank you very much, Tim Burnett, and to Laura Sargent for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
And our dear departed Vic Farrow.
Yes.
Yep.
Vic had to go
He'll be
on
back.
call, but he'll be back next week along with Jeff D., our usual host.
Yes, and thanks again everyone who's here and not here for helping us move to this wonderful new house/studio.
Yay!
And here comes the music.
Bye.
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 Bye.